everyone! You probably all know this, but I'm Aubrey and today I'm going to share with you just sort of my experience doing Charlotte Mason and what it's like to experience Charlotte Mason education as a student. So, mostly I'll be using my books that I'm reading as an example to just kind of share sort of my favorite things about Charlotte Mason education and also the differences I've seen in my learning through this method and through like a traditional method when I went to a private school. So I think there's really sort of, in a general sense, there's three types of books that you encounter, and I love all of them. The first, one of my favorite things about living books and about reading through them is because they are living. When you read biographies or autobiographies or books about a specific person, it feels like you're meeting them. After you read them, you know them intimately. And so, honestly, my favorite example, as many of you probably know, is Mark Twain's personal recollections of Joan of Arc. And this book is just amazing. For one, Mark Twain's writing style and just the way he describes things is absolutely beautiful, but also just Joan is so passionate and upright, and through reading this book I really got to meet Joan, and it was like I sat with her and talked with her for, extended periods of time, however long I spent with this book. And I just love that you get to know these different great minds and these different great people. And actually, I was so used to reading about her, it got so tiring saying Joan of Arc every time I would talk about her. So I just started calling her Joan, because it's like when you meet a friend, you wouldn't say like, this is my friend. You wouldn't keep calling them by their first and last name. Eventually you'd get on a first name basis. And so I was narrating to my charter school teacher about it, and I said Joan, and at the end she was like, wow, that's so cool that you said Joan, it's like if she was a real person and you actually knew her. And that's how it feels. It's like they're real people and you know them. And another book that I really like is A Man for All Seasons, which focuses on the life of Thomas More. And this was really interesting because this book is written entirely in play format, so it's all dialogue. And that was a really interesting book to read, to be able to learn about a character through entirely dialogue, as opposed to a lot of the other books that you're reading. So those were two of my favorite books from sort of the first group of books. I call them people books about different people, biographies, autobiographies, and I just love them because you get to know the people in them so intimately through the way things are written. Also, the next is history books. I just love the history in Charlotte Mason because, you have this big, firm background on English history, and English history is the start of American history. And so not only you go through it during Island Story in the younger years, and then also you go through again with Winston Churchill's History of the English-Speaking Peoples. And this is just amazing. I know it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard, like language, but I've been listening to it on audio as well as reading, and it's just been so rewarding because after all, he has, such a interesting writing style in his own way. And so it's really cool to be reading through this history of the English-speaking peoples, and you'd be going through each time period, and at the same time you'd be reading other specific books. Like this is one of my favorites, In Freedom's Cause. It's a story about in Wallace and Bruce, and just that fight between Scotland and England during the reigns of the first three Edwards. And so it's just, it's cool because you get that English side of the story, and even though he's not very opinionated in the way he says things, he still is an English person. But then you also get the other side of the story, because like this book is, definitely on the Scottish side, and even in Joan of Arc, you're learning it through a French viewpoint. So it's cool that you get all these different opinions and all these different views from the different countries, and it gives you such a wider and more fuller picture of each different time period. So those are, some of my favorite books as well. I really just enjoy all of these books, but so it's hard to choose my favorites. And the next, which truly maybe I could say is my favorite group of books, are the literature books of each time period. So when I was going through year 7 medieval history, I read Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott, and this was definitely my hardest book in that year. Like writing wise, it was pretty hard to understand at first, but once you get used to the writing style and sort of the language that they're using, it becomes easier to get the story out of that. So this was it was really amazing, because through reading these different, books that were written in the period, so like period books, you get a glimpse of their time that you don't necessarily get from your history. You get you learn about different customs, the way they wrote in different periods, what things were important to them. It's just all something that you can't really learn through history, but through reading different time periods literature and even different countries' literature, you get a piece of their culture, which I think is really valuable. Another example is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, and this I am reading this year, and it is so compelling. It is just an amazing storyline. I love this book, and again, I'm learning so much about France and about the different cultures and about just the different characters in here. It's just, you gain so much. So through reading these different books, you encounter with great people, you get to view all different sides of history, and you get to experience each country's and each period's literature, and it allows you to truly learn in a way that's not, it's relational. You're building these relationships, and you care about what happens to the characters, you care about the time period, you care what's going to happen next, you want to see, you can relate to them, and therefore it feels closer in a sense. It doesn't feel like history, like something that's far off. It feels like something today. And you just through reading these and looking at, just through reading about each different one, I've gained so much through reading about England through its entire history, and watching the different kings, watching the ways they governed, and you get a sense of government in a sense, because you get to see, oh, well, this king ruled this way, and this is how the country prospered, this is what they advanced in, whereas opposed to this rule where it was completely different, and you see that England just went way behind. It didn't advance, it didn't grow, it was not good for the people. And so you get so many different things in one just by reading these books and learning through them. And it's so much of a more living, relational way than opposed to the traditional learning method, when I went to private school for a year, we read through Story of the World. He would read the chapter aloud. We would write down as many notes as we could, and then we'd have what we called an outline with the different key story points, and we'd have to do that. We'd have a quiz at the end of each week, and that was that. And I didn't actually care about the history. I didn't actually care about any of them, and I don't remember anything from that now. Nothing, except for the one story which was in that book about, it was a Greek myth, and that is the only thing I remember, because that was the only thing that was done in a story-like manner, that wasn't just like, this person did this and this whatever date. And you just, because you're not worrying about learning and you're focusing on experiencing it, you actually learn, because you're not worried about having to get all the answers right for a test. You're not worried about, what should I be focusing on here? You're just enjoying the story. You're learning and building relationships with the characters, and it's just, because you actually care, you learn. If a student doesn't care about what they're doing, it's not personal to them. And it's another thing that I love about AO is because there is no right and wrong, because there is no, this is what you should be focusing on, this is the right answer. 10 different students could read the same book, and yet they could each remember specific things. They'll each draw specific things and different things from that one book. Even though it's the same book, each student is going to interpret it in a different way, and they're going to draw certain things out of it based on how they feel, what they're struggling with, and just different things. And it's just, that's one other thing that I love, is it's so personalized. You don't try and fit students in a box and say, this is how you should learn, this is what you should be learning. You just give them something living and something real, and then they can connect with it, because we're human beings. We're not machines. We need something that's alive and that's real, and with Charlotte Mason you get that. And I think it's also perfect because even though you are reading all these different books and there's a lot of literature, you are tempering that out with living math, with instruments, with foreign languages, music study, composer study, artist study, all these different things, that poetry, that help to they help you digest, like they give your mind a rest. And so it's really, with however many curriculums we've done over the years, this has been where I found that for myself I am able to engage fully and learn the most. So yeah, it's something that, school is no longer sort of a chore for me, and it's something that I enjoy doing. So it's really the best, for me. I feel like it's the best thing that you could give your kids, and I'm just so grateful that we found this and that I am able to learn in this way and to just experience these things.